Hi everyone, Vlad here. Should I record?
Do you see me a bit sprawled on the ground to get all this in the frame?
This is the infamous Maschinengewehr, 42.
Yes, I've already made a video about the Maschinengewehr 42. It's a very old video.
From 2 years ago of terrible quality where I only managed to shoot.
Among other things, I will put the suspension of my own fire for reasons that will be evident. And anyway, I didn't manage to talk about the story in that video, and above all, I didn't manage to calmly disassemble this wonderful weapon.
Don't judge me for the sweat, because it's 35 degrees in here. I just shot it with this weapon, and all this will weigh about 30-40 kilos.
I had to move it and I'm dying in the heat, so please, no comments about the sweat, thank you.
With the end of World War I, the belligerent nations, almost all of them, came to the conclusion that they needed two types of machine guns.
The first machine gun was the machine gun in the traditional sense, like the Maxes, which were already being used during the war.
A machine gun that we could call heavy, even though this name will then be called medical machine guns.
If you want to know why, a little more, there is my video on the dictionary of the best.
Anyway, a machine gun that could support a large volume of fire mounted on 3 feet and a light machine gun mounted on a bipod.
That could be easily transported and give greater firepower to the troops.
And if all the warring nations entered the war with a heavy machine gun, they can come out with both a heavy and a light one. And all the frontier tactics that were developed from the end of the First World War throughout the Second, revolve a lot.
On the use of machine guns, the machine gun is the main, let's say, firearm of the infantry. In reality, the machine gun does most of the physical work. Shoot from the wolf. The British emphasize this aspect a lot because basically the British soldier carries very few ammunition,
but carries some cartridges with him. For the Bren, the English light machine gun, in short, the whole team actually operates around this light machine gun.
The Germans come to the same conclusion, and in every infantry team, that is 10 men, there will be a machine gun. And think, every man carried a rifle with 40-45 rounds.
While the rounds for the machine gun were disproportionately more, often they ended up carrying 800, 900, 1,000 rounds for the machine gun.
So it also gives you an idea of how many rounds were carried with this weapon, which was the primary weapon compared to the individual weapons that the infantry had.
All nations conclude that 2 weapon types are necessary. However, Germany takes an additional step.
They come up with the concept of the universal machine gun, which is a machine gun that can be used in any context.
It can be a light machine gun, it can be a heavy machine gun, it can be an aerial machine gun, it can be a machine gun to mount on tanks. In short, to produce just one thing that, with various accessories, can be readapted to any role.
It's the concept of the general-purpose machine gun.
In particular, this configuration that we see here is obviously the configuration of the heavy machine gun, we could say mega machine gun, not the light one.
The light one would only have a bipod here in front.
If every infantry team had a light machine gun, but in the configuration with the bipod, every German infantry battalion.
So we're talking about a large unit.
It had a company of heavy machine guns, a company divided into 3 platoons, each of which had 4 machine guns on 3 feet.
Let's be clear, the light machine guns distributed throughout the rest of the battalion were 3 times as many, but 12, precisely, machine guns. Even though this changes depending on where we go and what phase of the war we are in, but generally 12 heavy machine guns per heavy battalion.
Because precisely, transported with this tripod that is called the FET 42, also the Maschinengewehr 34, the Maschinengewehr 34 was the first universal machine gun adopted by the Germans and had this type of mount, although a bit different. Obviously, it was called the FET 34, the Maschinengewehr. 42 was conceived as a replacement for the Maschinengewehr. 34, although the Maschinengewehr 34 will remain in production until the end of the war.
For a series of reasons.
For example, the Maschinengewehr 34 was intended for vehicles because since the vehicle mounting systems were not interchangeable, for the 2 machine guns it was easier to continue producing the Maschinengewehr 34.
To mount them, for example, in tanks, rather than readjusting the mounting systems.
The new weapon, the Maschinengewehr 42, is still widely used in the infantry and motorized troops, but indeed usually in vehicles.
We have a Maschinengewehr 34.
For this reason, in fact, many have asked me why, having a Maschinengewehr, 42, the Germans continue to use 34 vehicles because it has a different mounting system. The Maschinengewehr 42 is a quite interesting weapon because it has a history that reminds me a lot of the Eglo. Because the engineer who designed it, a certain Werner Gruner, had never designed a weapon before.
Just like Gaston Bloch, Werner Gruner was an expert in production techniques, just like Gaston Bloch.
And he had a huge experience in producing various objects.
Various balls with economical and easy to make components.
And the whole point of creating the Maschinengewehr 42 was to have a cheaper alternative to the Maschinengewehr 34, the Maschinengewehr 42.
We will see it uses a fairly unusual barrel locking system.
There are a few interesting stories about firearm technology, even quoted in an Italian book. They say it comes from a Polish patent. It's a bit absurd, a Polish patent that would have been captured in Warsaw in '39.
The problem is that there is a patent from this Polish engineer made in the United States.
And even if a prefect is similar to the operation of the Maschinengewehr 42, it is in many ways different. Instead, much more likely, this will be a bit unpatriotic, this fact that the system was devised from afar networks is a misunderstanding. Because the Mauser already previously worked on this particular locking system that closes with rollers.
And the interesting thing, the thing that almost confirms it, is that Mauser is responsible for the inspiration.
That, after the war, even in the final stages, but then especially after the war, the Mauser engineers will continue to work on this particular concept.
By disassembling it, we will see exactly what it is, and with this concept, other things will be born, like the G3 and the Maschinenpistole 5.
In some ways, the
Maschinengewehr 42 is the strange and twisted grandfather of the Maschinenpistole 5.
People don't think about this.
The Maschinengewehr 42 obviously has many derivatives, is used in various ways today.
And many
components have been reused. For example, the power system was practically copied into the American M60. The entire trigger group was copied into the M240.
The Maschinengewehr 42 for certain parts is and remains an icon of the general-purpose machine gun.
So let's take a closer look.
First, we will look at all the controls that are around this weapon, the weapons controls, the tripod's controls.
Then proceed to disassemble the internal parts.
For Dondami, you don't see the framing, but I want to show you some things about the assembly. First of all, with these large wings, I can adjust the extension here of the legs here, behind here. In this compartment, for example, I have a cleaning kit, a simple rag. I spoke about it, probably left it here at some point from the polygon. But there could be a whole complete kit for the maintenance of the mechanical parts of the weapon here.
To close it, we simply unscrew the screw and screw it back in.
We can adjust the weapon, of course, to adjust where it points. Behind here, there is a lever that is a brake. By engaging the brake, how can I adjust the weapon, among other things? Or these elements here that allow me a graduated scale to set a maximum and minimum limit of where the weapon can turn. For example, if I have to hit a specific area, I can in this way delimit this area so that my aim is a bit simpler. We have here a mounting system for a scope. This weapon could have a scope.
Because the real point, actually, of heavy machine guns is not to shoot at many people, but to shoot accurately at a distance.
Create a suppression effect at a certain distance.
That's why this is not a weapon that is quickly aimed. This is a weapon with this type of mount, which is aimed with great care.
It doesn't have much range of motion, as you can see. To raise or lower it, can I use this knob?
Heavy machine guns are designed to fire accurately at long distances, which is an interesting point to consider. Quite counterintuitive is that in the 60s, the English replaced the Vickers machine guns with mortars.
Which gives you a bit of an understanding of the tactical role of the medium machine gun or the heavy machine gun.
More like a piece of artillery, we might say, rather than a machine gun in the sense of video games. That is, you have a lot of people coming at you and you need to shoot as quickly as possible. The real advantage of the machine gun is that it gives you the ability to hit a target at a distance with a higher probability.
Because you see your target and you shoot a band of bullets at them. And maybe someone will catch something, what from the other side we see more clearly. This is a
This is then used to close the tripod. We clearly have this brake to rotate the weapon. Now I can't move it. Somehow, if I release it, as you see it goes, I can find my position, lock it.
And this instead is the trigger. And the last command on the tripod. Or this lever that, if pulled up, then allows me to release the weapon.
Another interesting thing that I would like to point out.
Inside here there are springs, so there is no need to put the shoulder on the weapon, but the weapon is free to recoil in the tripod. This, of course, is an added comfort and helps a lot with the obviously present precision.
Once I've aimed it, I can focus on seeing where the shots are going rather than continuing to aim, also because once I've aimed it there, it stays there.
Now we can go and disassemble it. I will take it out of the tripod. I will put myself in another position so it is clearer what we are doing.
After all, then a bit of demonstration. We will see it with a brief fire test. To disassemble it simply, here it is.
Let's now try to see the weapon in more detail. First of all, the weapon of the foldable sights, which help a bit with transportation.
Before shooting, remember to raise the rear sight and the front sight. The front sight, of course, is adjustable. It goes up to 20 or 20 feet. It is graduated in hundreds of meters scale.
In fact, on the left side, we have all the weapons controls. For example, we have a safety that, as in many German weapons of the time, is actually a button.
It reminds a lot of all the pump-action rifles, which in this position allows us to press the trigger, while if I push it in.
If the bolt were armed, nothing would happen. We obviously have the bolt's cocking lever.
At this moment, the bolt is armed, the weapon obviously fires, the bolt open, that is the bolt locked.
Back there, when I press the trigger, the bolt closes, picks up a cartridge from the tape, advances the tape, and fires the shot.
You'll see this version in the fire test if it's clear to you. It's only automatic mark and, among other things, convertible into automatic.
But why they had here at the range are 50 meters.
They faced issues with people using the Maschinengewehr 42 in automatic mode, including ceiling damage due to poor aim and the weapon slipping away from them.
Especially used as a bipod, so they said heavy machine guns only on the tripod, only in semi-automatic, because it's too dangerous both for people's safety and for the integrity of the structure. In a nutshell, another important command that we have is the lever that allows us to take out the Maschinengewehr 42 barrel to cool down. It actually uses a very simple system, which is not to cool the barrel in the first place, but when it's too hot, let's change it.
Something derived from the rest of the Maschinengewehr 34, even though they changed the barrel in two different ways.
To remove the barrel, first of all, I have to have the bolt open, so I go to arm the weapon. Now I can press this lever and
the barrel comes out. The barrel can be inserted either way, allowing for a quick 180-degree turn during intense combat situations without worrying about the correct orientation.
We're going to reinsert it, passing it through this ring. We put it in well all the way to the end. Here it goes straight, and we're going to close it.
This part needs to be done with a bit of force, and here we have it. I've reassembled the barrel of the Maschinengewehr 42.
The last check I have is this big loop here. Among other things, everything is made of printed parts.
The Maschinengewehr 42 reduces the production time of a machine gun by 50% compared to the Maschinengewehr 34, and with 25% less cost, a slight advantage.
There's this loop here that if we raise it, push it forward, it allows us to access the
weapon now.
This is the weapon in loading position. Actually, there's no need to open this cover. Whether they are the right tapes, there are tapes that start with a long metal tab that unfortunately I don't have,
which allow the weapon to be set aside when nearly closed.
Also because to load the weapon, this is an example of a tape, a just fired boss lock. Simply, when I have my first shot, it goes placed here at the end. I close the cover and the weapon is ready to fire.
This operation is better if it is done with the shutter open. It helps a lot. The shutter has this big pin.
Here that goes to move. This guide that goes to the right, to the left. And doing so,
you see here that it moves a kind of tooth, a little hook that gradually advances the tape.
Very simple operating system.
Among other things, all this feeding system will be absolutely taken up by the M60, which uses a completely identical system.
We can remove our tape off.
When a Maschinengewehr doesn't close, it indicates that a component is misaligned. It's closed and in the right position.
So don't try to hammer it into position. You could absolutely break something trying to disassemble it. First, it helps me greatly.
First, remove the barrel. To remove the barrel, we need to cock the bolt. Can we then proceed?
One could do without it, but I believe it helps me a little bit.
As we have already done.
To remove the barrel, then we can at this moment accompany the shutter to close. Okay, now we have this part here, we can use it. There is a button here below that by pushing and rotating it by 45 degrees it comes out. And now I need some gloves so I don't get dirty. Now to this kind of lace here. You see, if I can press this thing, I don't know how much you can see right now. Well, I can press this thing.
Slow. I won't break the sights like this, maybe in this whole process, and I can go pressing this thing and rotating it 90 degrees clockwise.
Holy Mother, what a grace of fat there is here, tight, a bit slippery. Okay, I was having a serious difficulty.
Both this piece that should simply go away and for no reason wants to do it.
Leave it in this position, reassemble the stock, and try to rotate everything together.
I am also a genius in my own way. This is the very oily recoil spring with all the stock, I thought rightly, because why disassemble it into two pieces when you can? I leveraged with the stock, it helped me a little, this huge one finally gave in. Recoil spring, greased with oil and sweat on every part of my body.
In this way, we can make the bolt retreat. By pressing the trigger, we can go and remove it.
Now I will try to explain to you as best I can how this bolt works, but you already see a certain resemblance to the Maschinenpistole 5. We have two parts. What is a bolt carrier, we could call it, with a fixed striker and a bolt head that has large rollers when the weapon goes forward. This bolt carrier pushes the rollers outwards that go to engage in the notches, which at this moment with the camera are very difficult to show you.
But these rollers go to lock against the surface and can't go anywhere.
The bolt carrier, protruding forward and letting the rollers out, as you see, also makes the firing pin come out, which immediately fires the shot.
Now this is the barrel. This is the bolt that I'm trying to put into the barrel.
So there are some inclined surfaces inside the weapon that make it so. These rollers can't go anywhere. If it's clear, they are firmly engaged in the barrel and there's nothing.
Unlike the metastable closure system like the Maschinenpistole 5, which can make them go back, there is no mechanical disadvantage in this system.
There are these rollers that just close when the barrel recoils. And we also see here where there is a diagonal surface inside the weapon that pushes the rollers inside, causing the system to open. This is the closed system. The rollers are outside. You can see when the barrel recoils. This roller meets a sloping surface here, which is my finger, which forces it to go back inside. In this way, by releasing the bolt again, the weapon goes forward. The carrier closes, pushes, and brings the rollers in. And you see at this moment that I pull the carrier back, but the system remains closed.
Something has to force these rollers inside, and this something will be a sloping surface when the barrel with the bolt recoils, because this is a recoil system.
And this diagonal surface will bring the rollers back in.
I'm fighting against gravity here.
Anyway, it will bring the rollers back in. This way, the system disengages.
Obviously, after this explanation, we can go back to reassembling the weapon, and as you can imagine, it's as simple as assembling it.
Meaning that here the rollers actually have to be careful because they need to be horizontal, otherwise they won't fit in correctly.
We're going to insert them. We have to press the trigger.
I said insert, we can bring it forward. This way we can go to reassemble the huge... the gargantuan recovery spring.
Okay, we can bring back the shutter. I said we can bring the shutter back, reinsert the barrel. It doesn't hurt me, just a moment. Here it is.
And now if your mom asks you if you know how a Maschinengewehr 42 works, you can tell her yes, and it will be easier to explain why you watch pornography.
In short, however, a small historical note. This is not an original German Maschinengewehr 42, this is a Yugoslav Maschinengewehr 42 known as M53. Yugoslavia received from the Soviets the machinery for the production of this weapon, since Serbia was already using the 8mm Mauser as its standard cartridge before the First World War.
So having a good machine gun in this tradition that they already had and were producing was a good thing.
The Soviets were not particularly interested in the machinery to produce this Maschinengewehr 42.
And so they gave it as a gift to Yugoslavia, which without any license, without any permission, actually went on to produce exact copies.
They are mechanically identical. The only difference is that the spring is a bit stiffer. The bolt is a bit heavier.
To decrease the rate of fire, this originally had a very high rate of fire, 1,200 rounds per minute. The Yugoslav version reaches 950.
It was generally considered a rate of absolutely excessive fire.
The high rate of fire was made in the first place to increase this famous probability of hitting the target at long range.
The machine gun's purpose is not to mow down people, but rather to shoot at a distance, which is a counterintuitive concept.
It gives you a stable platform that, by firing so many bullets in one direction, increases the chance that you hit someone, that you cause an effect of transmission. In short, it's really the true method of infantry combat.
Obviously, first of all, we have to open our tripod like affection, and I assure you this tripod is damn heavy.
Now I don't know its exact weight, I don't remember it by heart.
So we have two big wings here that we need to unscrew. By unscrewing them, these legs will be released.
I found that the best position to put them is at 3. I have some indications here. 1.
Once done that, I can go and screw it back at height 3. Also the other leg at height 3, so that everything is well leveled. Obviously, this is an operation that should be done by more than one person. Here it is. The hook is down here.
We made it. Partly, at least. Here it is.
Now maybe I want it a bit higher. The position, well, like the position a bit higher. So the one life, I have to stretch this a bit more so that it is the right level.
Here it is.
See how on a spring, so it can recoil. This is the great advantage of this system, of this Lafette tripod, which recoils in this way and helps a bit with the absorption of the recoil. Now, obviously, we have the tape to load the tape correctly. This is the back. You have to insert the ammunition and make sure that this tab goes back with the base, as you see, not beyond, and so on. The tools from the German era to load this are gone, so I'll do it manually. We'll shoot regardless.
Just a few shots, then there is the sequence of one shooting automatically with the bipod in Warsaw years ago.
So I recycle that one. Now, some versions of the tape have a special tab to help insert it, which helps a lot. With a tape like this, it's a bit impossible. So let's open the cover.
The shutter is already in the armed position. The arming lever in these cases goes forward.
I then tested it by telling him the barrel can be set to 360 or 180 degrees regardless of its position. They say no, it only works with one.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Let's fire 2 shots like this. Okay, now I want, okay, we start 180 and it feels okay. Thank you all for watching this video. As always, if you haven't subscribed yet, do it, I recommend, also if you want to support me. Since accessing these things, shooting, doing is not free, you can support me on my Patreon. I recommend I put it here in the description. Thanks to all my Patreon supporters who support me.
And what to say, see you next time.